Hola a todos, bienvenidos a Tierra Cuadrada. Vamos a hablar de distancia angular, ¿cierto? Entonces, los ángulos de elevación celestiales requieren que la Tierra sea plana, ¿verdad? Este es como los conceptos que hay, ¿cierto? Los arcos, ¿verdad? Y que formarían un ángulo, ¿cierto? Ahí. Otra diagonal hacia arriba, supongamos medimos una estrella, ¿verdad? ¿Qué es lo que vamos a ver ahora? Les van a explicar gente que sabe más que yo de esto. De hecho va a ser muy tranquilo para mí porque vamos a ver un video largo ya. Y son 4 láminas o 5, no sé. ¿Cierto? Entonces se entiende, bueno, aquí también te da como lo de los equinoccios, ¿verdad? Y vamos a ver a este señor, ¿cierto? La orden. ¿Ah? Que a este señor no le gusta los TPs, los del círculo, ¿verdad? No sé si los cuadrados, no sé qué, seguramente tampoco, obviamente. ¿Ah? Con esos, ya sabemos ya, ¿ah? De la orden. Y que aquí parece que alguien le miró o él envió a alguien esta información y ese alguien la filtró al parecer porque ahí estaría como su sesión arriba, ¿cierto? Entonces él está como viendo su... No es que le haya visto a alguien, que fue lo que pensé al principio. Y como que tiene que ver con esto de las views, ¿cierto? Que está ahí los total subs de un día y después bajaron, así como una criptomoneda, digamos, así como un Dogecoin peor, como un Shiba Inu, no sé, la Pinut, no sé cuál. Pero uno de esos animalitos, ¿cierto? Digitales, ¿verdad? Entonces se fueron, porque la gente se dio cuenta que este señor era una estafa, ¿verdad? Una verdadera estafa, este señor. Que odia a los terraplanistas, ¿verdad? Los odia. Pero es cordial, es súper simpático, sabe responder, ¿cierto? Porque en la orden ellos saben cómo manejarse, ¿cierto? Entonces llegan a ser simpáticos, ¿cierto? No simpáticos, pero como que no puedes decirle nada, ¿cierto? No puedes darle el cachuchazo porque ellos están así, oh, hola, ¿cierto? Entonces, muy simpático todo, mucha cordialidad, ¿verdad? Estoy yendo para otro tema, pero es que lo vamos a ver ahora. Entonces, aquí lo mismo, navegación me estoy poniendo como los monólogos, perdón. Navegación astronómica usa la posición del Sol y la nave por triangulación, ¿verdad? Y las cuadras, ¿cierto? Hay toda una matemática abajo, en el del medio está midiendo una estrella y de ahí saca la geometría con la superficie y un triángulo y ahí logra hacer un ángulo, ¿verdad? Como acá, ¿cierto? Y solo en una superficie plana, ¿verdad? No puede, no funciona en algo así, ¿cierto? Con tangente. Eso no es plano, es tangencial, ¿verdad? Inevitable, lo voy a ver un monólogo. Entonces, claro, me gustó esta que pusieron porque tiene el cuadrado, no el círculo, ¿verdad? El cuadrado. Me encantó esta. Como una sala de chat arriba, ¿cierto? Que es lo que vamos a ver ahora, un canal. Entonces no funciona así. Todas estas láminas son de ese canal, ¿ya? Ellos son expertos en esto. No funciona así. Y atacan todo el día a los globertos con esto, ¿cierto? Ahora lo vamos a ver cómo hace bolsa al otro masón, ¿verdad? Entonces así no funciona con tangencial, ¿verdad? Eso está malo para medir la distancia angular, ¿cierto? Se va entendiendo, ¿verdad? Entonces aquí te lo explica. Está ese malo, ¿cierto? Y el otro es bueno. Ahí sí, ¿cierto? Ahí está el payaso, ¿verdad?
And all. How are you? Hello. Hello. Hello, good to be here. So I saw a thumbnail over the weekend of Simon Dan suggesting that he was doing a bit of experimentation with flat Earth elevation angle measurements. So we've been subsequently recommended the video by Wandek, who's actually watched the video. I have not. And he has affirmed that Simon Dan is indeed suggesting to his audience to go out and, by way of nonsensical experimentation, which it isn't, measure Earth flat everywhere with elevation angles. Wandek, have you watched this? I know you have.
Yeah, I've watched it. I did skip through little bits and pieces, but yeah, that's what he's doing. He's set up a so-called experiment, and a scientific experiment apparently, with people using sticks and shadows, and measuring solar elevation angles from a globe.
Okay, you can't measure elevation angles from a globe. To measure surface level straight lines, they must be straight lines. Your knees acknowledging the linear distance, perpendicular elevation, and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that.
But Dan has already acknowledged that on a local scale, elevation angle measurement is a flat Earth prerequisite. You can't have elevation angle measurements unless Earth is measured flat. Here's the example, it's on screen. This is an elevation angle measurement. Here's a stick and a shadow. The shadow forms part of the line. And here's the expanded view of Antarctica's 24 hours of flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurements. So to summarise, if Dan's suggesting that you go out and measure elevation angles, you are measuring Earth flat at a local scale. So saith Simon Dan. He's already admitted this is a flat Earth prerequisite measurement. So if you want to go out and measure Earth flat, then I wholeheartedly encourage you to join Simon Dan in his endeavours to measure multiple flat Earth prerequisite elevation angles all over the surface of the horizontal plane the observer must be standing on to measure these angles. So what we'll do, just before we get into Simon Dan and his video, we've already heard his concession to me that a flat Earth elevation angle to a mountain is a prerequisite surface level flat Earth measurement. He's already admitted that. We already know that Dan knows that you've got to measure Earth flat for an elevation angle. But let's have a few definitions from some people who are, well, let's just say more qualified than potentially myself than to define what these things actually are in terms of what we're talking about. We're talking about elevation angle measurements. So let's start with the most official one I've got, which is radar tutorial. Measurement of the elevation angle. Like Simon Dan's encouraging everybody to go out and measure. Elevation angle is the angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. The reference direction, i.e. an elevation of 0 degrees, is a horizontal line in the direction of the horizon. That is radar tutorial. We all aware what a radar is?
El universo no te da lo que quieres. El universo te da lo que eres. La gente malinterpreta eso. Piensan que
We all aware what a radar is and how they define very specifically the horizontal plane the observer is standing on because it forms part of this flat Earth only measurement. Now, just because Dave's had the exact same treatment, Dan can have it too. You've got two choices. This is already defined. You'll get to read all about this when my book comes out. There's two positions. Number one, the rock. An acceptance, like Dan's already given us, that Earth is measured flat for elevation angles. In which case, Earth's measured flat. Now, Dan's acceptance of this makes no difference to whether or not this measurement is a flat Earth only measurement. It is. It's an elevation angle measurement. And Earth will be and can only be measured flat for this to be an angle. So, position one. Understanding and accepting that Earth is measured flat for this to be an angle. Two straight lines meeting at a vertex. Position two. The hard place. A denial that this is Earth measurement. This is an Earth measurement, Dan might say. We're just approximating Earth to a tangent point, a single point of tangency, below a fantasy ball that's created by measuring Earth flat also to acquire a radius value to put into effect to suggest that you're measuring to a ball instead of from Earth's surface. Now, the hard place means that you haven't got any surface level measurements of Earth then, because you want to deny that they're measurements, in which case all participants of Simon Dan's so-called experiment that suggests that they're flat Earth only elevation angle measurements aren't measurements, then you don't have any measurements. That's the hard place. What's that? You do have flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurements of the surface level as part of the angle. Then you've measured Earth flat. So, feel free to join Dan's, it's not an experiment, it's a measurement of elevation angles across the entirety of Earth's flat surface as per every single measurement. Or you can deny that you're measuring anything. Definitely not measuring Earth. It's just a calculation to a ball, to a ball. Well, let's get into it, shall we? Anything else you want to add, one day, before we do actually cover the video proper?
No. Well, you've just hit the nail on the head with everything. I mean, from what you're telling me, an elevation angle is, by definition, you know, it would be impossible to claim that you're using the surface of Earth as a globe and obtaining an elevation angle.
Oh, you can't. Dan's already admitted that. Let's just hear him admit it again. Just for the audience's benefit, I've had a few people that have suggested that I've heavily edited this, end quote, commenters. This section that I will now play came off Dan's video, unedited. Now, when I carefully phrase that, came off Dan's video, unedited, what I mean by that is Dan's heavily edited video is unedited by me in this instance. That is to say, if there are any edits, Dan made them, because he obviously can't string a full sentence together and has to heavily edit his own videos. But in terms of what Dan says, as per his video, he's conceding something that is unchallengeable. It's on screen. This is a flat Earth measurement. It's an angle, two straight lines, one is the base, to form the height. It's elevation, as in your height off surface level. That's what elevation is. So when we're talking about an elevation angle, it's absolutely without question tied to Earth's surface level, just like in this diagram. So when Dan admits that surface level will be part of the measurement, he can't deny it. Now he tries to pepper it with on a local level. I don't give a crap about Dan's mitigation for the facts in this matter, and they are facts. Earth is measured flat. It's a fact. It's a prerequisite. It's part of the measurement, in this instance, elevation angle, as defined by radar tutorial as requiring a horizontal plane the observer is standing on. In this case, to describe the 50.7 kilometres of linear, straight, flat distance that is used as part of the elevation angle for this mountain. Now, Dan's getting everyone to measure Earth flat, and I couldn't be more pleased. Well done, Dan. Yeah? You're going to get everyone measuring Earth flat with elevation angles, just like Dave did in Antarctica? Wonderful. Maybe like Dave, they can all come along and say, nah, part of the line bends like in this diagram Nathan specifically uses to catch out idiots like Dave McKeegan, who suggests that their bent line, forming an angle, is bent. In which case it's not a measurement of an angle anymore. Again, see hard place for the definition of where that would put you. Denying your own surface level angle measurement, that's two straight lines, as being bent for one of the lines. If they're bent, you haven't got an angle measurement. If it's an angle measurement, you've measured Earth flat. Just so we're absolutely clear, we'll hear Dan clarifying exactly how Earth gets measured flat in his own unedited video. Distance, perpendicular elevation, and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that, yeah.
Yeah, Dan will accept on a local scale that elevation angle measurement as per the diagram with a straight flat baseline for elevation. It's off the surface, it's elevation. It's flat, it can't not be. Yeah, Dan accepts that Earth is measured flat with elevation angles. He's mitigated with it being local. But he's going to get lots and lots and lots of people to measure Earth locally flat, isn't he? Let's have a little listen.
On June the 21st, 2025, the day of the summer solstice, many of all you subscribers from around the world stood outside, stuck a stick in the ground, and measured its shadow.
Ya sea en la primera carrera que fue presencial o en la segunda que fue en la modalidad Executive Online, el tema de los
In the ground and measured its shadow.
So everybody measured Earth flat, Dan? The angle of elevation from a stick and shadow as per Aristophanes' elevation angle measurements using the exact same methodology requires a horizontal plane of reference to be measured by every single one of your participants. So congratulations to Simon Dan. Every one of Simon Dan's participants measured an elevation angle. So let's define it. The altitude angle, sometimes referred to as solar elevation angle, describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. Sustainable by design, altitude angle. Every single one of Simon Dan's participants measured Earth flat with two straight lines forming an angle. One of which, if you want to call this an Earth measurement, was Earth's surface as part of the angle. Obviously, you feel free to take the hard place and deny this is a measurement of Earth. Or you can accept your own Earth measurements of a flat Earth, as that is precisely what everyone who participated measured.
And you did that to help measure the shape of the Earth and prove that it can't be flat.
See, that's a bit of a problem, Dan. If it can't be flat, then it's not an angle measurement. Yeah? So if the surface level that you got the shadow to be an angle with curves, then it's not a measurement, Dan. If, on the other hand, as per the definition of a elevation angle measurement, you accept that Earth can only be flat, as you've already done, Dan. On a local level, you accept that the linear straight distance and prerequisite elevation angle measurement is flat. Yeah, you've already done that, haven't you, Dan? It seems that you're now taking those flat Earth local measurements and suggesting that the surface isn't flat, then it isn't an angle measurement, Dan. It is. It's a flat Earth measurement. Let's have a listen to how Radar Tutorial define this again. Measurement. Notice how they start the definition by calling it the measurement of an elevation angle. Just for those who want to take the hard place and deny that their flat Earth only measurement of Earth was in fact a measurement of Earth. To a sphere, tangent. I can hear them cry. Let's hear Radar Tutorial define exactly what was measured by Dan and his participants. Elevation angle is the angle measured between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. Sounds like we're measuring a vertical and horizontal plane. Dan and your participants. You're measuring Earth flat. Well done. How many flat Earth measurements did Dan acquire from his audience, I wonder?
This was the biggest crowdsourced science experiment.
Dan, you don't know what science is. Science, that is natural science, otherwise known as physics. It's the study of the physical, physics, and natural science world. It starts by the observation of a naturally occurring phenomena. That is to say, you see something occurring and say, I wonder what caused that. Now, once you've established a naturally occurring phenomena, you've got half of step 2, formulation of hypothesis. Half of it being the dependent variable, naturally occurring phenomena you observed at step 1. The other half being your suppositional causal influencer. Independent variable. If independent variable, then dependent variable. That's called an alternative hypothesis. It sits alongside a zero difference result prediction, otherwise known as a null hypothesis. If A, not B. If suppositional causal influencer, then not my naturally occurring phenomena. Zero difference result, null hypothesis. Both cannot simultaneously be true. You can't both cause and not cause an effect at the same time. Ergo, the outcome, that's the actualization of a hypothesis, otherwise known as an experiment, is where you vary and manipulate your presumed cause to see if it causes the effect you observed at step one. If it does, tick, you validate your alternative hypothesis. If it does not, tick, you validate your null. Only one is true, one will be proven. The method is therefore empirical. One outcome will and can only be proven. A didn't cause B, tick. Prediction confirmed. A did cause B, tick. Prediction confirmed. That is a concise summary of science and the scientific method, otherwise known as physics. Dan thinks that going out and measuring multiple flat Earth elevation angles from a horizontal plane of reference the observer is standing on, end quote, is an experiment. No. This numpty clown is just measuring Earth flat in many, many, many ways over many, many, many different people with many, many different locations. So well done, Dan. You've measured Earth flat. It's not an experiment.
Nathan, so science man Dan doesn't actually know what science is. Is that what you're saying?
No, he doesn't. He's calling an experiment a measurement, or the other way around, calling a measurement an experiment.
He doesn't know what embarrassing is it?
Say again, Brian.
Just say he doesn't know what a measurement is either, because he called it a calculation there a week ago. Did he not?
Yeah.
I've ever done. And today, we reveal the results.
Every time you see a degree number, that's a proof that Earth is measured flat, just so we're clear.
Hello all and welcome along to another video with me, Simon Dan. Thanks very much for joining me. So back in June, I asked as many of you as possible to take part in an experiment. I want to recreate...
Dan, this isn't an experiment, you're a clown. This is not cause and effect reasoning being established after the observation of a naturally occurring phenomena. This is not science, you're an idiot, just to be clear.
One of the oldest experiments ever.
It's not an experiment. If you're referring to Aristophanes, we cite this as a flat Earth measurement because it is. It's an elevation angle measurement of a stick and a shadow. So if you're suggesting that because the books call it an experiment, that makes it an experiment, it just means that you don't know what science is. I've already gone through what science is by way of describing in detail the scientific method. What you're doing is measuring angles off a flat Earth, Dan.
No fancy tech, just a stick, a measuring tape, and your location.
Good.
Yeah, this is going to be good because there's the main part he's going to leave out. I wanted to say this before the video started, but you were talking so much, so I didn't want to interrupt. There's a main part he's going to leave out. The very thing that proves the whole thing is on a flat Earth. Anyway, thank you.
And I want us all to do it together. This is going to be a global experiment on the same day.
I asked you to measure...
You see, Dan, it's not a global experiment, you see, because obviously, if you think it's a global experiment, number one, you don't know what an experiment is. But if you think it's a global measurement, then you're ignoring that part of the physical measurement of the angle is with respect to a horizontal plane the observer is standing on. It's an angle from the horizontal, Dan. So either you've been dropped on your head or you just don't understand what science and indeed maths are when you talk about measuring angles. Two straight lines, not global.
Measure two simple things: the length of a vertical stick and the length of the shadow it casts at solar noon. Solar noon, remember, is the point where the sun
He said vertical, so that doesn't exist on the globe.
is the highest.
Yeah, you don't have vertical, Dan. Vertical is perpendicular to horizontal. You don't have that on a globe. Global experiment, well, okay, so you're going to be using the parameters of a globe, which is in and out only. These axiomatic principles perpendicular to a plane, you don't have. There are no planes on a globe to reference horizontal for vertical. You don't have this, Dan. You've immediately failed because you've said this is global.
Ahí parece que le dijo lo que vimos de lo input y output, ¿verdad? Al parecer le dijo eso, pero no lo dejó tan claro como que dijo que claro, que en la máquina tiraba el input y el output, ¿cierto? El input sería la cartesiana y el output sería la geodética, ¿verdad? Lo vimos eso.
So in and out then, oh no, immediately uses something that requires being perpendicular to an axiomatic plane of reference. What a clown. Well done, Brian.
So he's
Porque le habla de los simuladores y la perpendicularidad de la superficie, ¿verdad?
In the sky for your location.
vertical stick. Sorry, Dave. So he's got, just to get this right, so he's got a vertical stick and a horizontal shadow, which is on the surface of the Earth. And he thinks he's measuring curvature. Is that correct?
He thinks it's automatically assumed to be global. He's just begged the question and said this is being done globally. It's like, if you want to claim that this is proving something, don't start by begging the question and saying it's being done globally. Now me, I'll go, okay, I'm not going to assume anything. Let's not assume a thing. What are we measuring? Surface level for part of the angle. Okay, so we're measuring Earth flat then. That is the end. I mean, immediately, I like this now, right? Since the whole Earth's measured flat thing, I can just relax. I've got my feet up, kicking back. Why? Because I don't need to sweat this in any way, shape, or form. What are we going to do? We're going to measure Earth. Okay. How are we measuring it? Well, we're measuring surface level as part of an angle. Okay, so prerequisite, we require Earth have a surface level then to measure as part of this angle. We're measuring Earth flat. It's end game stuff. So I can relax. I'll just sit right back here. Because what else do I need to do? Brian's already clocked this. He's gone, that's it, then game over. You're using an axiomatic flat Earth principle for an axiomatic flat Earth measurement. What else do we need to do? Well done, Dan. Welcome to Flat Earth. Well done getting everyone measuring these flat Earth angles.
Nathan,
Yes.
seems like they're doing all the measurements now anyway. We can kick back and relax. Let them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to do anything. Now, what Dan will do is beg the question and say, well, these angle measurements are working with respect to a sphere surface. No, they're not. They're angles. You know, you're denying the axiomatic principle of what an angle is if you want to claim they've got anything to do with a curved surface. Oh, right, to a sphere. These aren't measurements, right? Calculations. To a sphere. Tangential. Yeah. Keep it up, lads, you bunch of dicks. Meanwhile, it's defined. We're measuring elevation angles from the horizontal. And if you want to claim they've got anything to do with their surface, then that is the horizontal. Yeah, to a sphere, tangential. It's all over, lads. It's measured flat. You don't have to like it. Dan's proving it.
And this was important because it effectively removed longitude from the equation. All we needed was your latitude and...
Tengo que dejar para que no se me desarme el video después si le pongo pausa, entonces.
All we needed was your latitude and...
Tengo que de nuevo...
Spits out coffee all over himself. So you just need a flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle to Polaris? For your latitude? You're measuring Earth flat for... that system, Dan. Yeah? Those are circles of equal elevation, measured with respect to Polaris. 1 degree of declination from Polaris' zenith for every 60 nautical miles measured. I'm covered in coffee because I've spat it out when I've heard him using Polaris measurements. How are you going to measure them? Oh, right, they're elevation angles of a flat deck to the star in the sky we call Polaris, and used for a prerequisite system that makes circles of equal elevation, with flat Earth elevation angles to it. Yeah, Dan, it seems like you've got quite a few flat Earth prerequisites. Oh, right, you don't need longitude. Oh, but you do need to measure Earth flat with a star called Polaris, though, right? You're measuring Earth flat, you complete clown!
Could you give us a J on that a second, Nathan, please?
is the point where the sun is the highest in the sky for your location. And this was important because it effectively removed longitude from the equation. All we needed was your latitude and the solar...
Yeah, he didn't measure any, he didn't determine the azimuth, right? But he's measured a portion of the longitude line. If you're measuring your latitude using the sun at its highest point or whatever, then you're still measuring a portion of the longitude line. So maybe he didn't measure it, like they're not bringing the azimuth into it, but he measured a portion of the longitude line, which is a straight horizontal. You know what I mean? Because the distance between the latitudes make up the point distance of any one longitude line. So he has measured, not the longitude, but he's measured a portion of a line of longitude.
Sorry, Brian. So the latitude is an elevation angle measurement to and from Polaris from sea level, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
Well, I really don't know. Well, he's using the sun. You can do that with the sun too, but I really don't know how we're going to measure a two-dimensional coordinate system on the surface of a three-dimensional shape.
You can't. You can't. They have to measure Earth flat. It's a flat Earth system using Polaris, isn't it, Brian?
Well, any measurements of elevation is viewing the Earth as a flat plane. Because your measurements, the baseline of your right angle triangle, which is what all angles of elevation are, the baseline of that has to be parallel to mean sea level. There's no way around it.
Absolutely.
So if you're trying to measure the Earth and you're measuring elevation angles, you're not measuring curvature, are you? You're measuring elevation angles.
And you can't measure
all you've got to do is
an elevation angle. So no, it's absolutely not. Definitely not measuring curvature.
No, you're measuring a flat. Good morning, fam.
Yeah.
Prostate, whatever that means. To your health. Oh, is it Prost? Yes, it's like a German cheers, isn't it, Prost? Is it German? Anyway, good morning, fam. Prost. To your health. Isaiah 42:8. This graven image, the globe idol, Revelations 21:8, and 1 John 5:19, and John 2:8. Thank you. Click, click, click for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Angle to see what was going on. Using just that stick was important because it effectively removed longitude from the equation. All we needed was your latitude and the solar angle to see what was going on.
Solar angle? A bit like I defined earlier. Should we read again what the solar angle is defined as? I think, well, I might as well read it out again. I don't mind. Solar angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's defined, Dan. It's quite handy that I've got 20 of them right in front of me. The altitude angle, sometimes referred to as the solar elevation angle, describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. Oh, well, isn't that wonderful? We're measuring a horizontal plane we're standing on. It's forming part of the angle that we're going to get a degree from, either from the sun or from Polaris for latitude. So we're measuring Earth flat in two different ways. How wonderful that Dan has finally recognised that Earth will and can only be measured flat. Should we hear Dan's comments on this from a couple of days back when I pointed out that Earth can only be measured flat with elevation angles, using the linear distance, perpendicular elevation, and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle?
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that. The Earth is flat.
That's right, Dan, yeah. Earth is flat for your flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurement to be an angle. Again, just so we're all clear, like with Dave, you've got two choices now. Two choices, not just one. Not just, oh, right, I accept like you already have, Earth is measured flat. Locally. Yeah? Because it is. Measured flat, that is. Earth, that is. Measured flat, that is. You can now, if you choose to, now that I'm pointing out that something you'd worked on a few months back, getting everybody riled up to go out and measure Earth flat. Now they've done it, and you've admitted that this is a locally flat Earth-only measurement, you can choose position 2. That's called the hard place. The hard place of denying that you've got any Earth measurements, Dan. You can now say that everybody you encourage to measure Earth for its sphericity actually has to now accept that for this to be a measurement at all, it's a locally flat Earth measurement, like you've already admitted, Dan. It's quite handy that I've got you admitting it, right? Because everybody that's gone out and measured it's already measured it. You're not going to dissuade them from going out and measuring Earth flat with angles, because I'm pointing out that that's definitely a flat Earth measurement. You've accepted that locally it's okay to measure Earth flat because it's a really big ball, right, Dan? That doesn't alter what we're measuring, what you're measuring, what every single participant of your lies about it being an experiment. It's not. It's a measurement, Dan. A flat Earth measurement by every single participant. So well done. You figured out your latitude with respect to the elevation angle measurement of a flat Earth to Polaris, and then you measured the sun with a flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle that Dan understands implicitly requires you measure Earth flat. Now all the
O sea que fueron todos los globertos, 1000 globertos a medir el plano, ¿verdad? La tierra plana, eso fueron a hacer.
mitigation about how locally flat that is measured is irrelevant, because we definitely, unequivocally, without question, measured Earth flat in this so-called experiment. Well done, Dan.
Using just that stick length and the shadow length it cast, I could then calculate the solar elevation angle.
Dead.
Sorry, I just want to say that regardless of how big a ball might be, you will never be able to measure a horizontal line along its surface. Making it big does not make any part of that flat, and certainly does not make any portion of that in the orientation of horizontal. Just wanted to add that.
I'm just saying this. As a flat earther, you couldn't really disagree with anything Dan's telling us about how Earth's measured, could you? He's just pointing out how it's measured flat all the time.
Perpendicular elevation and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that. Yeah. Using trigonometry. And that's what Eratosthenes did over 2,000.
Así que fue como lo hizo Eratóstenes, ¿cierto? Vamos a poner más calidad también. ¿Qué me salió acá? Porque está la otra, Va. Un segundo.
Years ago to
Yeah, you've already admitted to this too as well, haven't you, Dan? That normal trig is okay. That is to say, using flat baselines and triangles on a flat Earth is okay. Again, with the same caveat from Dan. I'll just reiterate Dan's little caveat. That it's only local that we're measuring Earth flat, and also we don't only measure Earth flat, right, Dan? That's a direct quote, no editing. Yeah? We don't only measure Earth flat with trig, end quote, Simon Dan. Yeah, but we do definitely measure Earth flat with basic trig, don't we? It's flat triangles, Dan. Yeah? You see, you and Dave need to get together, because about 18 months ago, Dave seemed to be under the misapprehension that me saying, well, we measure Earth flat with triangles, it's trig. And he said, nah, we don't. And then here you are getting the entire world to measure Earth flat with trig. Right, Dan? And admitting that basic trig is okay on a flat Earth to measure locally. It's only short distances that we're measuring Earth flat, says Simon Dan. That's because we're measuring Earth flat with trig and angles and surface level and sea level and Polaris-based latitude measurements off a flat Earth. Everything Dan's doing in this so-called non-experiment, it isn't an experiment, we're just measuring stuff. It's flat, though. Every single bit of it's flat. Well done, Dan.
Could I get a quick J? He's after saying something incorrect there.
length and the shadow length it cast, I could then calculate the solar elevation angle using trigonometry. And that's what Eratosthenes did over 2,000 years ago to estimate the size of the Earth. And we just...
Yeah, that's not correct. Because Eratosthenes is not measuring the length, he's not measuring the length of the shadow between him and the obelisk. He's using the obelisk to cast a shadow, and that shadow will be the beginning, where that shadow ends, will be the beginning of his elevation angle. Right? And his elevation angle gave him a zenith angle. No, he's using right angle triangles for all this, but he's not using trig for it. So he doesn't use trig for that. Trig is used for like a mountain or something. It's not used for the sun or any celestial body. That's how he got the distance of within the claim, 500 miles, because he got a 7.24 zenith angle off of his elevation angle. So yes, he used triangles, but he didn't use trigonometry. He used the celestial navigation method, which is which is 16 nautical miles per degree. So that's where you got the 500 miles out of it.
We've got another definition.
But that would be it. But see, this is what another thing that caused the whole Eratosthenes thing into question, because the 500 miles, I think, is the statute mile distance. So that's it's like, but statute miles didn't exist then. So someone had to, and nobody knows what the correct number for conversion from what a nautical mile is to stadia, because nobody knows, because it's even up in the air if the nautical mile conversion to statute miles is correct. So,
ya lo que plantea él es que Eratóstenes hizo una medida que ya no existía y la tradujeron y algo así.
there's a whole thing there.
Que lo hacía con millas náuticas la
Long story
medida
short,
y esa no
Dan is
está.
incorrect to say he used trigonometry
Entonces,
for that, because he didn't. He's using triangles, but he's using celestial navigation or
Claro.
astronomy processes with triangles.
Claro, como que Eratóstenes lo puso creo que en una fuente, una cosa así, como que cambió, ¿cierto? La refracción, algo así. En realidad yo no... Ese argumento siempre lo he encontrado tan ridículo y payaso que nunca he indagado en eso, ¿cierto? Es como básico, entonces me lo salto. Pero lo que yo entiendo es que... lo que trata de decir él es que acá los ángulos de elevación es como a nivel local, ¿cierto? Y Eratóstenes usó algo así con una medida que modificó y ahora una curva, ¿verdad? Porque en otro lado había otra medida, algo así.
It's not like trade.
They're saying he's measuring the solar altitude angle though, right?
Y nosotros todos hacemos el mismo experimento en la actualidad y se mide plano, ¿se entiende?
He is, but
Right, so let's just give me a second, Brian. So let's just define that again with a different definition. This one's from educational.psu. The solar altitude, AS, measures the angle between the central ray from the sun and a horizontal plane contacting the observer. That's the definition of what's being measured by education.psu. We've got radar tutorial. Let's have another one. This one's from MathSpace. An angle of elevation is the angle from the lower object to the higher one, while an angle of depression is the angle from the higher object to the lower one. Both angles are measured with respect to the horizontal plane of the reference object. So we're measuring with respect to a horizontal plane to get this angle, because that's what it is, a measurement of a horizontal plane the observer is standing on, because it's specifically with reference to altitude, and altitude's off the surface of Earth in this instance. So we're clear.
¿Se acuerdan que habló de la altitud acá, verdad? Y se acuerdan que vimos que inventaban una altitud elipsoidal, proyectándola hacia el aire y luego sacaban el paralelo arriba, una cosa así, y ahí empezaban a inventar los ejes ortogonales, ¿verdad? Y el Gauss y todo eso, proyectado, ¿cierto? Y todo en la simulación, ¿no? Pero por dentro de la máquina recoge rectángulos, ¿verdad? Sin esa descripción ortogonal, ¿verdad?
Measuring Earth's surface as a horizontal plane, it's a flat Earth-only measurement. Every single one of the 20 citations I've got makes it explicitly and abundantly clear that we're measuring Earth as the horizontal plane of reference in every single one of them. There's no reference in any of them to tangential-based measurements because they're not measurements of an angle, when you've only got a single point, to a sphere, as opposed to from, that's a measurement of Earth, Earth's planar, horizontal, flat surface. Now, if it isn't any of those things I've just listed, then it isn't an angle measurement. Let's just get it clear. This is The Rock, me demanding Dave and Dan and anybody else who measures Earth sink to their knees in acknowledgement of the horizontal plane of Earth's surface that's being measured for this to be an angle. So every one of Dan's participants can give themselves a little pat on the back for measuring Earth flat. Alternatively, you can say, no, I didn't measure Earth, no measurements, to a sphere, tangent. You can do that too. Of course, I'll turn around and say, so you haven't got any Earth measurements then? That's what you can do.
Claro, finalmente la ciencia es la ciencia y lo que diga el otro, aunque sea una mentira, todos medimos plana, entonces...
That's what you can do.
Did it too with over 1,000 people. The exact
1,000.
Wowee! 1,000 people measured Earth flat. Wow, this has got to be the biggest flat Earth measurement demonstration in all of history, Dan. Every single one of them measured the horizontal plane of reference the observer was standing on. And if they didn't, then they weren't making a measurement as per the 20 citations that define it as requiring Earth be flat. It's part of the measurement. So 1,000 people measured Earth flat. I cannot believe how wonderful a day it is. Can we all believe how fantastic, how wonderful 1,000 people measured Earth flat?
number was 1,004.
Again?
Locally.
It doesn't matter if you caveat it by saying, oh, no. Every single one of them used a flat Earth because Earth's a really big ball. Okay, so if I am to accept your apologetics that Earth's a really big ball, I'm understanding correctly that we measure Earth flat. Yeah, we do, I know. There's no getting away from this for any of you numpties who think you're on a ball. You can apologise for it. You can say, yeah, we measure Earth flat because it's a really, really big ball. That's why we measure it Earth flat. Because it's a big ball. That's why we measure it flat. Obviously, you'll sound like a crackhead, like you're insane. Because you measure flat things flat, you measure ball things ball-shaped, and you don't measure things flat because they're ball-shaped. That's insane. But meanwhile, let's break down the sentence. We do measure Earth flat. That's easy to understand and easy to prove. We're measuring an angle from it. So that's easy to prove beyond all doubt. It's a fact. We measure Earth flat. But let's go over the second bit. Because it's a really big ball, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever because we're measuring it flat. But we're not measuring it flat because it's a ball, but we are definitely, unequivocally measuring it Earth flat. Unless, of course, that Dan and every single one of his 1,000 participants wants to deny that they measured Earth. In which case they've got no Earth measurements and I couldn't give a crap what they claim. If they haven't got any Earth measurements, I'll only accept elevation angle measurements of Earth. And if they're not of Earth and they're just calculations, extrapolations or approximations, then they won't fly with me. I mean, you can use them to fantasize about how, yeah, the measurements that we're now denying, they're from a really big ball. That's why they're flat Earth measurements that you're all measuring for Dan. So if you feel betrayed by Dan, because he told you it was a global measurement, you didn't expect me to come along and call you idiotic, did you? Were you expecting Nathan Oklay to look down the barrel of the camera and say, did you participate in Dan's flat Earth measurements of surface level for an angle? Because you've got me looking down the camera barrel, smiling and affirming your need for a flat Earth prerequisite to measure this surface level angle measurement of Earth as a flat plane. So well done, every single one of Dan's participants. You all measured Earth flat. And let me personally, my name is Nathan Oklay. I want to welcome every single one of you 1,000 participants to the flat Earth you all measured. Welcome to flat Earth.
14. Sorry, Dave.
One more, Dick, I'll go after you. One more, Dick, I'll go
Really quick. Not just his participants. I mean, if we presume that all his followers and everybody who's watched this video of Dan's has not disagreed with Dan, we have to presume that they also agree that Earth is measured flat.
Oh, if they disagree, you can hear it from Dan himself. Linear distance, perpendicular elevation, and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that.
So Dan acknowledges all of that. That's unedited, just in case anybody says, that's heavily edited. No, That's Dan responding to a picture of a flat Earth being measured with an elevation angle and saying, I understand and accept at a local level Earth's measured flat, because it is! Yeah? And 1,000 people measured it flat for Dan. I couldn't be more pleased. What a great day. Why didn't we hear about this sooner? Dan, why didn't you let us know? I'd have joined in. Dan, you could have told me. I'd have measured Earth flat with you. Yeah, just need to send me an invite. Yeah? I could have gone down to Antarctica if they'd have invited me, but Duffy decided not to. And then decided to just lie about it over and over again. I mean, I've said he'll burn in hell unless he actually provides those documentations and email responses that don't exist, where I decline an invitation. But this, I could have done it from my back.
Y este señor en el chat dijo que apoyaba al Mercator, entonces...
Couldn't I? I don't have one. I live in a crappy apartment. I earn
más
very
vivo
little
que
money.
eso, no les crea a los
But
del círculo.
nevertheless, I still could have done it. Measured Earth flat. You could have made it 1,001, Dan. I'd have definitely joined in with measuring Earth flat. Absolutely. And I want to congratulate you, Dan, and welcome you personally to the flat Earth you all measured. You and your participants, right, Dan? Well done. Welcome to flat Earth, Simon Dan.
Separate results over 43 different countries, and some people went to insane effort with this. I had emails from people in remote parts of Alaska and Chile, and even a Girl Scout group taking part as well. It was amazing to see. And I want to start by saying thank you.
Just a quickie. I mean, if we're taking this story as true, and these 1,000 people across the earth doing this, measurement. 1,000 people, right? They're putting a stick in the ground and measuring an angle. Surely, one of them or more of them must have thought, "I'm not measuring curvature here. I'm sticking a stick in the ground and measuring an angle of the shadow, which is
claro, como uno de esos no midió una tangente, ¿verdad?
horizontal along the ground, because it's an angle, it has to be horizontal. I've got a vertical stick. What the hell has this got to do with measuring curvature?
I gotcha.
Surely
so I just trying to rephrase that on your behalf, one deck. So I'm
O sea, de distintas partes del mundo, más geografía, más superficie todavía, o sea, más plana, ¿cierto? No más plana, o sea, igual de plana, pero se comprueba más que es plana, eso hoy.
For a friend, how many of the 1,000 participants that measured Earth flat for Dan recognised that it's an elevation angle measurement and prerequisite flat Earth only measurement? How many of Dan's audience understood the definition of an elevation angle? Solar elevation angle measurement. End quote. Simon Dan. He's made it explicitly clear what you're measuring. I've defined it 6 times so far. And every one of the definitions included a horizontal plane the observer must be standing on because it's part of the measurement. So I'm just asking for a friend. How many of Dan's dum-dum audience recognised that they were measuring a flat Earth? I'm just asking for a friend. 1,000 people.
Hold on.
How many recognised it? Good.
Hold on, you're not being fair, because the curvature comes at the end when he adds everything up and everybody's measurement.
Right, sorry, after he's got everyone to measure Earth flat, then adds up there's no measurements if it's a globe. None of them are angles anymore.
No, listen, you see, what Dan did is he gave everyone, he mischaracterized what was happening. And he gave everyone, all 8,000 people, the impression that they were doing a science experiment when they were measuring curves horizontal plane. Like, that's what they were actually doing. And vertical lights above that, from different locations in the world. So what they actually did was, in their minds, they all measured Earth flat all around the globe.
Él dice que mucha gente malinterpreta este concepto llamado la ley de la atracción.
Yo creo,
Piensan que se trata de, ya sabes,
On the globe.
I actually, now that Bondex said it, I said it in sarcasm, but I do actually feel his sentiment now that he said it. I do want to know how many of you were recognising the flat Earth measurement that you were making. If there's 1,000 of you, is this to say that a good chunk of Simon Dan's audience who got up and participated in this are brain dead? Is that what this means?
Yeah, I would say the only ones that did were those Girl Scouts, and they were just told by their leader that what they were doing was measuring the globe. they were the only ones. The rest of them, I would say, none of them actually.
Buena.
None of them. Not
Se le
one of
amotinaron.
any of the rest of them actually realized what.
Se le amotinaron al masón, ¿verdad? Le dijeron, oye, estamos midiendo un plano, no una bola. Y solo unos niños scout nomás, ¿cierto? Pobrecitos. Son más niños, se entiende, ¿cierto?
Thank you to all of you that took part. The attention to detail and the precision by which you measured was...
So we're measuring then, Dan. So just so we're clear, when you want it to be measurements, it's measurements, right? So we're clear now. Dan said it. He's thanking his audience for all the measurements they made. Yeah, so we'll clarify what's been measured then. The horizontal plane of Earth's surface is one of the straight lines that form the angle. It's in all the definitions that I gave. It's in the definition that's easily located by anybody who went out and did this. I'm just asking for a friend, though. Did none of the 1,000 participants go and look at what an elevation angle measurement was measuring? Oh, let me be the first to tell you, because obviously all 1,000 of you didn't look it up. It's a flat Earth measurement of a horizontal plane the observer is standing on. So saith radar tutorial in math space. So these are citations that people would go to understand what they're measuring if they were to be measuring things like, I don't know, elevation angles, solar elevation angles, as specifically defined as being a flat Earth only measurement. It's not like Dan didn't know. Maybe some of you didn't realise you were measuring a flat Earth for this so-called experiment. Maybe you didn't realise that Dan knew damn well that you were measuring Earth locally flat. Like measuring Earth flat. Dan knew, yeah? Every single one of you idiot 1,000 participants that didn't realise you were measuring Earth flat. Let me just show you and assure you that Dan absolutely without question knew you were measuring Earth locally flat. Perpendicular elevation and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
Yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that. The Earth is flat.
So Dan's acknowledged it. He understands that at a local scale, you, all 1,000 of you, measured Earth flat locally. I mean, in a very high-pitched tone. Locally, on a small scale, you measured Earth flat. It's just there's been some confusion about where we measure Earth flat. Oh, well, the joy. I got 1,000 measurements of Earth being flat, 1,000 of them. I knew just right before my book came out. Everyone's saying, where are these flat Earth measurements? I got 1,000 of them. 1,000. You need more?
Genuinely a joy to see. For me, it taught me that...
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can. Anyone who wants to know, where are these flat Earth measurements? You can just send them over to Dan. He has 1,000 of them.
Yeah, we'll send them all to you, Dan. Next time someone asks me where's Earth measured flat, we measure it all, every single continent, according to Dan. Everyone, he's got everyone on every continent measuring Earth
Todos
flat
los continentes.
with elevation angles to a horizontal plane of
Ninguna
reference.
perpendicularidad o tangencial, ¿cierto?
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on the lap that you said. It's even better than that. He has precise flat Earth measurements.
Yes, don't forget the word precise. And after I said we can put our feet up now. Whoever asks you for the measurements, I'm going to say, go see Dan.
the backyard science experiments are still alive and well, and you should...
Go ahead.
Sorry, Nathan. I was just saying Dan could maybe publish a book called The 1,000 Proofs That Earth is Flat.
1,000 Proofs That Earth is Measured Flat by Simon Dan. What a wonderful book, Dan.
should all give yourself a big pat on the back. So let's first off...
Yeah, I told them to do the same, didn't I, Dan? Give themselves a big pat on the back for the flat Earth that they measured. Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Pause, Nathan. The book could be 1,001 flat Earth measurements, and Dan and Tim's name could be on it. The measurements in Antarctica, and Dan's measurements.
Talk about what we expect to see on the globe Earth.
They wouldn't expect to see anything on a globe. Dan, are you a crackhead? This is a flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurement that you've already conceded to me literally only days ago. Requires a local flat measurement. It's a flat baseline for it to be an angle. Yeah? Now, I understand that Dave, a couple of days later, was like, look, this diagram, it looks kind of curvy, where it's got a little line with a degree measurement next to a number, meaning it has to be two straight lines meeting at a vertex or it's not an angle measurement anymore, an elevation angle measurement, a solar elevation angle measurement, a very accurate solar elevation angle, that's two straight lines, measurement, says Dan. I mean, obviously, when it's me talking about Earth being measured flat with this angle, it stops being a measurement, and it's suddenly we're calculating it. We're calculating it, right, Dan? Yeah, and until all your participants need patting on the back, then they get a kudos for measurement of a flat Earth. Locally, I mean, obviously, I'll go to the high-pitched mitigation for how flat Earth is requiring to be measured by saying, it's only local measurement of a flat Earth. It's only local, right, Dan? Go on, whoever it was interrupting me.
Yeah, it's not 2 straight lines. It's 3 straight lines, making a right-angled triangle.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yes, well done. I was going to come back to that, actually. Brought me back earlier than I was going to. In terms of Dan's mitigation, he keeps saying that it's calculated with height and distance because he doesn't want to say it's an angle measurement, right? Because as soon as he says it is an angle measurement, like he's just done. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I really appreciate we got there in the end. It's definitely a measurement, yeah? Yeah, thanks. Once he got there, and he's not mitigating for Nathan saying it's a flat Earth measurement by saying, no, it's calculating height and distance. Okay, so we're going to need the distance and height then, Dan, for elevation angles, say you. So we're not going to exclude the height of the third line, as Brian's now pointing out. We're not going to suggest that it's only 2 straight lines. It's 3, right? It's trig. Yeah, well done, Brian. I do often whistle past that. And it's mitigated for, and by mitigated I mean incorporated back into the fact that we're doing trig by Dan when he says it's height and distance. Yeah, Dan? So we're not going to get away from these things, are we, Brian? Because Dan's absolutely, without question, tied them to this.
Esa parte fue importante que yo no la entendía. Ahora me acabo de dar cuenta que dijo que había una tercera línea que es la que con eso ya tienes como la volumetría de la superficie, por así decirlo, ¿cierto? Entonces ahí ven como si es que hay una curvatura posible o no. Se supone que no midieron nada de eso.
Absolutely, but it's what he's also not saying. What part of all this is he not referencing? What is he not mentioning?
The flat Earth prerequisite surface level, otherwise known as the horizontal plane the observer is standing on.
Claro, llega al mismo plano que se necesita, ¿verdad?
Well,
GP.
The GP?
Yeah. The geographical position that will be vertically directly below the celestial body or mountain or whatever. That means that point. That's why he's not referencing, because he can't measure an angle of elevation. There could, especially for a celestial body, there could be thousands of miles, have a horizontal baseline of thousands of miles in length, and have a GP point directly below it if it's on a globe. I mean, you can't do any of this. None of this can work. Even with a tangent, none of it can work. It's all failed.
This is how it works. It's on screen now. Talk about measuring angles from surface level. If you're talking about Polaris, then you're measuring an angle to Polaris with respect to a flat surface level for it to be an angle. This is what it looks like. This process is how the globe gets created. What you do is you take angles from surface level and then you create a globe around that point.
Eso es lo que explicamos antes,
with a
¿verdad?
polaricentric system.
Eso es lo que explicamos con el centro polar, ¿se acuerdan? Que eso lo hacía la coordenada geomagnética, todo esto del magnetismo, esos que te hablan de unos imancitos, ¿cierto? Que vuelan con el imán del magneto, ¿verdad? Esos del imancito. Harto imán en la cosmología, magneto. Ojalá traigamos al DX-man, ¿cierto? Al magnetoman. Y le damos vuelta a la luna, ¿cierto? Y a los astros con el magnetoman, ¿verdad? Esas coordenadas magnéticas son más inexactas en las zonas polares. ¿Qué significa? Que las geocéntricas, ¿verdad? Que las coordenadas rectangulares originales. Eso significa. Que en el fondo el geomagnetismo está transformando a la bola. Por eso es que te hablan tanto de magnetismo y de magnetismo en todos lados. La CIA, los militares, el Pentágono, ¿verdad? En el atolón, ¿verdad? En la isla Navidad, ¿verdad? En la de Kiribati que te mencionó el masón, ¿verdad? El masón que del video, ¿cierto? Anterior. Entonces, el geomagnetismo se necesita para inflar la coordenada polar y así obtener el output de la bola que acaba de decir aquí el señor Nathan.
That's this. It's an angle.
I just love the part.
Dead.
Oh, I just love the part. Yeah, it's measured flat locally. And I was thinking as I'm listening to it, like, well, then, it would be great if you had like more than one measurement. And he said he had 1,000 on all different continents and places and everything. So everywhere that they're measuring flat.
Claro.
And that explains that it's a globe. These people are crazy. reality.
It doesn't explain
My
why the
God.
globe. It explains nothing. It doesn't explain anything other than what they're measuring is a flat Earth that they're measuring. Now, what they do with their measurement, I couldn't care less. Yeah, you can mitigate all day long and say, no. Let's ignore that we've measured Earth flat, because if we take those flat Earth measurements, they match what I predict will happen on a globe. I go, oh, okay, that's nice. That's how you make your globe fantasy work, is it? By taking flat Earth measurements? Yeah, I know. That's exactly how the globe was created, thusly. It's a position around you like the globe is a glorified protractor, projecting angles through the globe to the celestial sphere, so that you can then project PZX triangles onto the surface of said sphere like it's something you can stand on.
El P, ¿cierto? Mencionó la P, ¿verdad? Yo cuando vi esto la primera vez no entendía nada cuando hablaba de esto, pero ahora que hemos estudiado, ¿verdad? Ahora entiendo todo lo que él está diciendo, ¿verdad? Él estudió lo mismo antes que nosotros. Está hablando del ángulo P, ¿verdad? El de la altura de la superficie, ¿cierto? El Gauss. Y luego la altura y el eje X a los lados, ¿verdad? Eso fue lo que mencionó.
Then you can't get angle measurements from it. So if you pretend that you're measuring off a flat
Que todo eso es una
tangential
simulación.
plane that isn't
La máquina
Earth's
recibe el
surface,
cartesiano, el
single point,
rectangular,
and then you project that
no el geodético o el
non-measurement of a curve that
geomagnético,
won't give
¿verdad?
you an angle back into the center of hell, then you can make it all work again when you're working from the equatorial plane inside the globe. That's why you'll often see things working from within the globe. And they'll just say, yeah, it just works because if you just imagine you're inside the globe, a glorified protractor. But that's the hoodwink. That's the blag. Everything's measured flat and then projected out onto a spherical surface. I mean, you can then wrap a tube around it, cut it out and call it a Mercator projection of a globe that's a flat map that we are all familiar with. But it doesn't alter that the original measurements of Earth's surface are elevation angle measurements to the luminaries. That's how it all begins, with Earth being measured flat. See, Dan hasn't figured it out. He hasn't done enough research. He's too dumb. So when the books say, yeah, you can go out and measure an elevation angle and it confirms the globe, check out how Aristophanes made measurements of elevation angles in Cyan and Alexandria to prove the radius. So therefore we're measuring Earth spherical. No, you're measuring elevation angles off a flat Earth. It's just none of the books will point that out to you, that you're measuring the surface level for your angle. And if it's not the surface level of Earth, it's not a measurement of Earth, it's a calculator. Then you haven't got any measurements of Earth. Oh, you have. You've got surface level measurements. Then Earth's being measured flat by 1,000 of Dan's participants. I kid you not. Every single one of them was a flat Earth measurement. It's only local, though.
Just before you press play again, just on what was said there, what they're actually doing is demonstrating, right? 1,000 people are demonstrating in all different parts of the world that the Earth, without a doubt, can only be described as flat. Now, if you want to talk about what they're actually doing, they're determining the horizontal distance between their GP point on mean sea level and the GP point of the celestial body, the sun in this instance, right, and the sun's GP point. So when you're measuring the elevation angle to the sun, they're determining the horizontal distance between those two GP points at mean sea level. The mean sea level is the dimension of the horizontal plane. Now, what Eratosthenes did is he measured an angle, right, using the shadow of an obelisk in Alexandria, and that angle told him.
¿Los obeliscos de qué son? Las órdenes, ¿verdad?
Time he knew that the sun's GP point, the sun was directly over a well in Cyan. So what he actually did is that allowed him to determine a 500-mile distance, horizontal distance from his GP point to the GP point of the sun at that exact moment. So it's all measurement of horizontal measurement of and determination, I should say, vertical measurement that gives it a horizontal determination between two GP points. There can be hundreds and thousands of miles in length if you're talking about celestial bodies, you know. So that's what's actually happened. If without a doubt demonstrated, 1,000 people demonstrated, without a doubt that the Earth can only be described as flat.
With this experiment. Now, during the summer solstice, the sun is directly overhead the Tropic of Cancer. That's at 23.4 degrees north.
23.4 degrees north. So a degree measurement of a flat surface level to polar.
Y esos 23,4 ángulos, ¿cierto? supuesto eje de inclinación, ¿verdad? Hacia el otro lado del 666, ¿verdad? ¿Sabían esa?
To give you latitude, Dan. So you're going to be measuring Earth flat for
Es decir, el sobrante de ese eje de inclinación.
Polaris-based angle measurements off surface level. Let's define what an altitude angle measurement is so we can clarify exactly what's being measured when we measure Polaris to give us our latitude. An angle of elevation is the angle from the lower object to the higher one, with an angle of depression being the angle from the higher object to the lower one. Both angles are measured with respect to the horizontal plane of the reference object. So in this case, if we're going to measure for latitude, we're going to measure Polaris with respect to its angle off Earth's surface. If we're going to use this for navigation, or in any way proving anything with respect to Earth's surface, again, rock and hard place still applies. This hasn't got anything to do with Earth's surface. I'm not measuring Earth's surface. Well, then you're not measuring Earth's surface. Bugger off, you haven't got any measurements. What's that? You are measuring a fact. It is a flat Earth measurement to Polaris. It's an elevation angle. You don't have to like this, by the way, globe heads. It's where your ball gets created. That's why we came to the rock and hard place example. We just had so many examples of people coming to us with flat Earth elevation angles, only to then tell us that they weren't measurements of Earth. Like deny their own measurements, like Judas. This isn't a measurement of Earth. I'm not going to be proving anything to do with Earth's surface with this. Now I know we've got to measure Earth flat for it. We heard it so many times, we defined it as the hard place, where you bunch of numpties, start relinquishing your own measurements of Earth as not being measurements of Earth because you can't face the awful truth that Earth is measured flat.
This means that as you move away from that line, north or south,
Right, move away from the straight flat line that you're measuring a recession of Polaris 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles. That is to say that the angle will recede towards the horizon, being a straight horizontal plane of reference to describe that recession along that line. In a northward direction, 3 for 3. So you've got Polaris-based measurements, solar-based measurements, and now the third, north, south, east and west. These are only ever capable of description on a plane. That's north. That's south. That's east. That's west. These are directions on a plane, two-dimensional. Has Dan never used a compass? Is he a crackhead? Was he never a Boy Scout? South and north are flat, as are the elevation angles describing the recession of Polaris towards the horizon. You're not going to get away with telling me that it's not two straight lines. You've already given it an angle designation. So we know we're measuring Earth flat. These are facts that are undisputable. So there's no way around it. It never was a debate. Earth as a sphere was created with these flat Earth prerequisites. There never was a discussion to have about Earth being a sphere in a false dichotomy where Earth is suggested to not be flat by numpties. It's measured flat by absolutely everybody always. Now let's get this clear as well. This is never going to change. Every single example that the anti-flat earthers bring out from this point forth will, without exception, demonstrate how Earth is measured flat. Do you think Dan had any idea that the second he came out with this as an example, it had me glaring down at the camera, laughing at him and his 1,000 participants and defining the measurement as requiring a flat Earth? Now, not me having to convince his audience with my words, but me citing radar tutorial and playing Dan's words about how Earth must be flat for this. Linear distance, perpendicular elevation, and flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle.
yeah, okay. On a local scale, I would acknowledge all of that. The Earth is flat.
It's because on a local scale, you can only measure angles full stop if the surface level is the horizontal plane of reference the observer is standing on, end quote. Citation from Sustainable by Design. That's how we are measuring Earth, without exception. It's measured flat. Dan's little Weasley concession about it only being local will never alter what you, the ball-believing numpties, have heard hundreds of times. You just heard it with a concession that works with your cognition. Oh, well, yeah, we do measure Earth flat because it's a really big ball. Now, if you say the first bit really quickly, you don't notice. The second bit sticks in your mind. The bit that's clarifying that it's a really big ball. But if I just slow down what I've just said so it stings in the way that's factual, we measure Earth flat because it's a really big ball in that. So we're measuring Earth flat like Dan's admitting. Yeah, every single one of the 1,000 measurements that were taken in this so-called experiment and confirmed without doubt that Earth is measured flat. Anything anyone wants to say before I round out the live stream? Anyone wants to add?
I thought Brian was trying to get in.
Yeah, I mean, hands away. The minute you're finished, it's painful. I was watching, not watching that, hands away. Yeah, latitude and longitude. How many dimensions of that data?
2.
Right. And between any 2 points on the surface of a sphere, is there a drop rate?
Yes, there must
Can
be.
be measured.
Yes.
Right. So, how could you have a 2-dimensional grid on the surface of a sphere?
You can't. Not if you're going to use it in any practical way in line with the axiomatic principles of two-dimensionality. In other words, Earth is being utilised as a flat plane when you utilise this grid. Like when you measure distances on the surface of any map, when you input the distance or the altitude with respect to surface level into Google Earth, when you describe or measure the altitude profile, that's elevation profile, again within Google Earth, it will demonstrate the two-dimensionality that is with respect to. If you're trying to describe the three-dimensionality of deviations from that principal grid that Brian's asking about. Or to put it another way, Brian, Earth will always require a horizontal plane of reference to reference whenever measuring it.
Yeah, because you're measuring, as Dan said earlier, verticals above and below that horizontal plane. He didn't say all that, but he used the term verticals. And since you use that means it was over. Because you're measuring vertical heights above and below. Like, if you want to talk about the latitude and longitude grid, where it would be latitude, longitude, and elevation. So, what would the elevation be? It would be a vertical height or drop above or below that, but that grade, and that grade would be mean sea level. That's where that grade sits. So, and that's why that grade, latitude and longitude, which is known as a polar coordinate system, like translates over like perfectly to an XY grid.
La cuadrícula XY que dijo el Luquetela, ¿verdad? El del punto Nemo. La Tierra plana cuadrada con XY no funcionaría el punto Nemo, ¿verdad? Porque no existe. Lo vimos eso en Cartografía 2 también, al final aparece, ¿cierto?
So, an X and Y is 2 dimensions. Flat plane. Now, you can have a Z, which would be a zenith point or drop above and below that flat plane, just like you can have an elevation above and below the latitude and longitude grid, as it says at mean sea level. But that's verticals. And horizontals, there's no curvature being measured at any point or being referenced at any point when you're referencing those grids. Anything for recording the show.
Brilliant. Right, I will do a quick call to action before we do anything else because I've actually done one in this particular instance. So please let Simon Dan know in the kindest possible way. Let him know. At Nathan Oklay 1980 sent me with a polite comment that doesn't immediately get removed by either the YouTube videographer himself, in this case Simon Dan, or indeed the YouTube algorithmic bots that like to remove comments. I've posted a link to Simon Dan's video in the YouTube live stream chat, so that should be whizzing its way on by now. Let's just show you that on screen. There it is. So please click on that link and pop along to Simon Dan's video and congratulate him in all sincerity. I think it is worthy of congratulations. Let him know. Say, really, really well done. Nathan wanted to let you know how pleased he is with your local flat Earth measurements of elevation angles to the Sun and Polaris. So pleased. With that, though, I am going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oklay 1980 or Nathan Oklay Premiering Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oklay 1980 channel member, hit me up on PayPal and Ko-Fi and Patreon, all that good stuff. Of course, another massive thank you to today's Discord and Cheapest panels. I've been Nathan Oklay, and I will see you all in the next video.
Listo, nos vemos la próxima.